Hey Chevra, what's going on? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Peites, Daf 89 of Masechta Ayruvin. We are beginning the 9th perek of Masechta Ayruvin. At the beginning we talk about, really the entire time we talk about roofs, carrying from one roof to another roof, and that's really the sort of context for our Daf today. Chevra, let's jump in. New Mishnah. Towards the top of Peites Amud Aleph called Gagos Ha'ir Rishus Achas. All of the roofs of the city are considered one Rishus. And that means that you can carry from one roof to the next. As long as no roof is has a difference of 10 tfachim in height, right? So if you have Ruvain's roof, and then next door to Ruvain is Shimon's roof, but Shimon's roof, you have to climb up 10 tfachim to get to his roof, well then you can't carry things from Ruvain's roof to Shimon's roof. But if they were the same level, so then you would be able to carry things from one to the next. That is Reb Meir's opinion. Whereas the Chachamim say that each roof is its own rishus, is its own domain, and therefore you may not carry from one roof to another, even if they are on the same level. Reb Shimon takes Reb Meir's opinion a step further, and he says, Echad gagas vechad chatzeres vechad karpefis. When it comes to roofs and courtyards and karpafs, right, those enclosed areas that are more than a besa asayim, more than 70 2/3 amas by 70 2/3 amas, that are non-residential, a karpaf. So rishus achasein lechelim sheshavsu lesochan. They are all considered one rishus for kelim that rested in them when Shabbos began. V'lo lechelim sheshavsu besoch habayis, but not for vessels that were in the house when Shabbos began. We've seen this a number of times before. Reb Shimon's opinion is that as long as these items were in the chotzer, or the karpaf, or the gag, when Shabbos began, they were not in a house, well then you can carry not just between karpafs and between roofs and between chotzers. You can carry from a chotzer to a gag, to a karpaf, no problem. That is Reb Shimon's opinion. But again, the item that we're talking about had to have been in either a gag or a chotzer or a karpaf when Shabbos began. If it was in a house, then it would not work. So let's say you have a chotzer with 5 houses that open up into it, and they made an Ayruvin chatzeres, and therefore you're allowed to take something from the house into the chotzer. That's fine, but then you would be unable to take that item to another chotzer or to a gag or to a karpaf. But as long as they were in the chotzer when Shabbos began, you can then carry it from one to the other, and he also doesn't have any differentiation between height. Says the Gemara, Yosef Abai bar Avin, Reb Chanina bar Avin. So Abai bar Avin and Reb Chanina bar Avin were sitting. V'Yosef Abai Gabayu, and Abaye was sitting by them. V'Yasve v'Kamri, and they were sitting and they were saying, Bishlam Rabbanon. So I understand the rabbi's opinion. Pretty straightforward. Probably the most straightforward opinion. Just like under the roofs, i.e. just like within the homes, Ruvain's got his house and Shimon's got his house. They're 2 separate houses. Well, the same thing applies to the roofs. Ruvain's got his roof, Shimon's got his roof. They're separate. You can't carry between them. You know, the Rabbanan's opinion might not be our favorite because it's restricting our movement, but it's certainly easy to understand. El Reb Meir, my kasavar. But what does Reb Meir hold? If he holds, like the Chachamim hold, that just like the homes are divided below, that Reuven's house is his house and Shimon's house is his house, well, that then also their roofs are considered separate. Well, amai rishus achasein. Well, then why does he say that they're one rishus and that you'd be allowed to carry between them? V'kasaver ein chalukin. And if you say that the different homes are not separate, it's just all one, because, or at least the roofs are all considered all one, because anything above 10 tfachim from the ground is all considered one rishus, well then afilu gag gavo asar v'namuch yud nami. Well then what's the deal with the 10 tfachim thing? Right? Meaning, If Reb Meir holds that these houses are considered divided and the roofs are considered divided, well then you shouldn't be allowed to carry between them. And if they're all considered one, well then that's it. They're all just considered one. Who cares if one of them is higher than the other 10 tefachim? So Amru Abaye, so then Abaye said to Abaye bar Avin and Reb Chanina bar Avin, Lo shmi'a lechu hadam Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi. Chaver, didn't you hear what Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi said? Omer hayi Reb Meir, that Reb Meir would say, Kol makom shata motzei shtei reshuyos ve'ein reshus achas. That whenever you have two reshuyos but they're one reshus, what do you mean? Kigon, for example, Amud b'reshus hayachid. Our example that we could tell you in our sleep these days. In Amud Rishus Hayachid, Kavah Asara, 10 tefachim tall, V'achav Dalid, 4 tefachim wide, Osur L'katef Aleph. So Reb Meir says that you would be unable to put stuff on it. Meaning, you have a chotzer. Chotzer, of course, is a Rishus Hayachid. In that chotzer, you have a pillar. This pillar is 10 tefachim tall. It's 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim wide. It's also a Rishus Hayachid. So it's one Rishus Hayachid inside of another Rishus Hayachid. Well, guess what? Reb Meir says that you'd be unable to take something and put it down on this pillar. Again, this pillar is a Rishus Hayachid. It's in a chotzer which is a Rishus Hayachid. You are nonetheless unable to put something on this pillar. Gzeir mishum tel b'Rishus Harabim. Because we're concerned about a pile in Rishus Harabim, right? Because we're concerned that if you're going to put stuff on this pillar in your Rishus Hayachid, well then you might walk out to Rishus Harabim, see some kind of an item, say, oh, let me put it down on that pile. But that pile might be 10 tefachim tall and 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim wide, which would make it a Rishus Hayachid, and you're in Rishus Harabim, then you'd be putting something from Rishus to Rishus. First Mishnah of Masechta Shabbos 1,000 years ago. So Hachanami here also Gzeir Mishum Tel B'Rishus Harabim. So here also the way to understand Reb Meir is to say that the Reuven's house and Shimon's house, their roofs are considered connected, and therefore you can carry from one to the other. However, when one of the roofs is higher than the other by 10 tefachim, well, at that point there's a separate concern, and that separate concern is the same concern that we have when you have a chotzer with a pillar that's 10 tefachim tall and 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim wide. That we're concerned that if you take something and put it on that pillar, then you might end up taking something in Rishus Harabim and putting it on a similar pillar. And for the same reason, we also don't want you to take an item from Reuven's roof, and put it on Shimon's roof, even though it's all the same Rishus Hayachid, if Shimon's roof is 10 tefachim taller, because out of the same concern that you might end up doing the same thing in Rishus Harabim, putting something in Rishus Hayachid. So Vermina, afilu machteshes, vafilu gigis. So then Abaye bar Avin and Reb Chanina bar Avin thought to say, well, if that's the case, then maybe we should say the same thing by a barrel or a mortar that's in the a Rishus Hayachid, right? That just like if you have a chotzer, you're not allowed to put something on a pillar that's 10 tefachim tall and 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim wide. So maybe the same thing would apply to, let's say, a barrel. If you have a barrel that's 10 tefachim tall and 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim wide, maybe I should be unable to pick up something in the chotzer and put it on the barrel. So Amrlu Abaye said to them, Hachi Amar Mar, this is what Master said. You know what? I was assuming that Master was Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi, who he was quoting a minute ago. I wonder if Mar means Rabbah. Often when Abaye quotes Mar, it's a reference to Rabbah. I wonder if that's what it means. I don't know. I'd have to see. Akopanim, Abaye responds that the same would not apply to the barrel. Lo Amar Reb Meir Ela Amud ve'amas harichaim hol v'adam kover lem makom. That when Reb Meir said that you're unable to put items from the chotzer onto this pillar, that is specifically things like a pillar or a pedestal, I guess, a base. A base is probably good, right? A base that you would put a millstone on, right? These things that are kavua in the chotzer that you're not going to move, right? But a barrel or a mortar, these are things that you're going to move, and therefore you would be able to put things on top of them in the chotzer, even if they're 10 tefachim tall and 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim wide. But 1 second, Abaye, but what about a wall? Right, let's say you have 2 chotzers, and between the two chutzers is a wall that's 10 tefachim tall and 4 tefachim wide. The Amar of Yehuda, and said Rav Yehuda, Kshetim Tzilom L'Divrei Meir, that you could say according to Rav Meir, Gagen Rishus La'atzman, Chatzeres Rishus La'atzman, Karpefes Rishus La'atzman, that according to Rav Meir, roofs would be considered their own Rishus. You can carry from one roof to another. Courtyards would be considered one Rishus. Karpafs would be considered one Rishus, i.e. that you'd be able to carry from one to the other. You wouldn't be able to carry from a roof to a chutzner, according to Rav Meir. According to Rav Shimon, yes, but according to Rav Meir, no. But you would be allowed to carry from one roof to another roof, from one chutzner to another chutzner. My lab, and the Gemara wants to say, no, what does this mean? How are you going to get something from one chutzner to another chutzner? Mistama, you're taking it and you're going to put it on the kosel, on the wall that's between them, in the wall. Right, so you have these chutzers. The chutzers are Rishus HaYachid. You're then putting it on a wall that's also Rishus HaYachid. So, but didn't we just say that according to a Meir, you'd be unable to put something from a chutzer onto something that's 10 tefachim tall and 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim wide? So, Amar Rav Huna bar Yehuda, Amar Rav Sheshes, lo lahachnis u'lohotzi derech psachim. No, it's not talking about putting something on top of the wall. It's talking about by way of the entryway, right? That if you have something that was in a chutzer, you'd be allowed to bring it to another chutzner by way of its door, through a door. Okay, very beautiful. Chacham say that each roof is considered its own rishus. So, Reuven would be unable to take something from his roof to Shimon's roof. Okay. Itmar, it was stated, Rav Omer ein metalton bo ela b'dalet amis. Rav says that you'd only Reuven, right? So if you have Reuven's roof and Shimon's roof, and let's just make things easy and assume that they're all the same height. Okay. Nonetheless, if Reuven goes up to his roof, he would only be able to carry something up to 4 amis. Shmuel says that he'd be allowed to carry on his entire roof, meaning you have Reuven's roof is right next to Shimon's roof, okay? And there's no like walls between them or anything like that. Now, Rav is saying, well, here's the thing. So Rav is saying, according to the Chachamim, you're not allowed to carry from one roof to the other. Reuven can't carry from his roof to Shimon's roof. And therefore, Chevre, what's this a case of? Nifritzabim lo l'makom ha'aser. That, Reuven's roof is his rishus, Shimon's roof is his rishus, therefore he's not allowed to carry, according to Chachamim, he can't take something from his rishus to Shimon's rishus. There's no wall between them, so therefore it's nifitzavim lo l'makom ha'aser. And therefore, according to Rav, you're unable to walk more than 4 amas unable to carry more than 4 amas. Shmuel says that you'd be allowed to carry on your entire roof. Just don't bring it to your fence, according to the Chachamim. Now, says the Gemara, now, if the walls between the roofs were recognizable, so then everyone agrees that you'd be allowed to walk on your entire roof, right? So let's say you have Reuven's roof, and then you have Shimon's roof, and they're not connected. There's a gap between them. There's a little bit of a space, and therefore you could see where Reuven's roof ends and Shimon's roof, starts. So in that case, everyone would agree that even though there's no proper walls, you could say good asik, that the walls of the building continue up to the heavens, and therefore the roof is enclosed, and you can walk in your entire roof, just don't bring something to your friend's roof. Kiplige, where we have machlokas between Rav and Shmuel, is b'mechitzas she'eina nikaris, is by walls that are not recognizable, meaning, let's say the building was connected, and therefore it's not necessarily clear where Reuven's roof ends and Shimon's roof begins. So Rav Amar ein metalton bo ela b'dalet amis. So Rav says, look, there's no divider between Reuven and Shimon's roof, so therefore you're not allowed to carry anything more than 4 amis. Lo amrinon good asik mechitzta. We don't say that the walls of the house would break through the, imaginarily break through the roof and continue up to the heavens. Ushmuel Amar, where Shmuel says, mutar l'talta b'chulo, you would be able to carry Reuven can carry on his entire roof. The aminun good asik mechitzta, because we'll say that the walls of the house break, imaginarily just break right through the roof and go up to the heavens, and therefore Reuven and Shimon's roofs are distinct, and therefore each one can carry on their own roofs, just don't go to the other one. Tnan, we learn in our Mishnah, we said in our Mishnah that according to the Chachamim, each roof is its own rishus. So Bishlam l'Shmuel, nicha. Well, this works out great according to Shmuel, right? Each roof is its own rishus. That implies that you'd be allowed to carry if it's its own rishus. It implies you can carry in the entire thing. So El Rav Kasha, but what does Rav do with this? What does it mean that each one is its own rishus? Doesn't that imply you can carry on the entire roof? So why does Rav say that you can only carry 4 amas? So Amri Bei Rav, they say in the Besmedrash of Rav, Mishmei the Rav, in the name of Rav, and there's a Gemara in Sanhedrin. I think it's Likutei Rashi quotes it over here. Gemara in Sanhedrin, Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis, it says whenever it says Amri Bei Rav, it means Rav Hamnuna. Okay. So they say in the Besmedrash of Rav, Shelo yitalto ba beis amas begagzeh or beis amas begagzeh. No, what does it mean that each one is its own rishus? It means that, yeah, you're not allowed to walk more than 4 amas, but you also can't walk 2 amas on one roof and then 2 amas on the other roof, right? You can't do that. And even within your roof, you're limited to 4 amas. Viha Amr Rabbi Elazar Kavin and Bavel. But one second, Rabbi Elazar said that when we were in Bavel, which is very interesting, and this has come up a few times recently in Masechta Ayruvin, that Rabbi Elazar was one of the great Amoraim of Eretz Yisrael. He was a contemporary of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. I believe that after Rabbi Yochanan killed Reish Lakish, so Rabbi Elazar was then Rabbi Yochanan's chavrusa, and I think he wasn't. Rabbi Yochanan, I think, wasn't. He wanted to get Reish Lakish back. Rabbi Elazar once upon a time lived in Bavel, and we saw that he was a student of Rav and Shmuel when he was in Bavel. So said Rabbi Elazar, Ki avinam beBavel, that when we were in Bavel, have amrinam beRav, we said in the Besmedrash of Rav, Mishmei the Rav, in the name of Rav, Amrei ein metat l'boel b'dalet amas, that they said in the Besmedrash of Rav, in the name of Rav, that you only carry 4 amas on the roof, not more than that, not your entire roof. V'hani devei Shmuel tanu. But in the Besmedrash of Shmuel, they actually brought a brisa, meaning by the Besmedrash of Rav, they said in the name of Rav that you'd only carry 4 amas. But apparently by the Besmedrash of Shmuel, they actually had a brisa that says ein lo'en ela gagon, that they can walk on the entire roof. So my ein lo'en ela gagon, what does it mean that they can walk on their roof? Lav d'shar tatule b'chulei. Mistama means that you can walk on the entire roof, and therefore it sounds like it's a kasha on Rav, meaning Rav says that you're allowed to carry only 4 amas on your roof. But apparently Shmuel has a brisa that says that you're allowed to walk on the entire roof. So wouldn't that be a problem for Rav? So the Gemara says, not really. Is this theoretical brisa that they have any stronger than our Mishnah? We already know, like we have our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that each roof is its own rishus, which we wanted to say implies that you can carry on your entire roof. To which we answered, no, it just means that each one's its own rishus, meaning you can't walk 2 amas in this one and 2 amas in that one, but within one gog, you'd be limited to 4 amas. So that wasn't a kasha on Rav. So why would this brisa that apparently Shmuel had be any stronger than our Mishnah? So achanami beis amas begagzeh, beis amas begagzeh. We'll say the same thing by this brisa that apparently Shmuel had, and we'll just say that what does it mean that each one is its what does it mean shar ein lo'en ela gagon? What does it mean that they only have their roof? It means that they only have their roof, and they would be unable to walk 2 amas on their roof and 2 amas on the other roof. But even on their roof, they'd only be allowed to walk 4 amas. Rav Yosef lo shmeli ashmaita. Says Rav Yosef that he never heard of this. He never heard of this opinion of Shmuel, that Shmuel said that when you have the Reuven's roof and Shimon's roof and they're next to each other and there's no wall, there's no visible wall between them, that you can nonetheless say good asik, that the wall goes up to, that breaks through the roof and goes up to the heavens, and therefore Reuven can walk in his entire roof and Shimon can carry in his entire roof, right? Each one can carry in their entire roof. It says Rav Yosef. Now, of course, Rav Yosef was a student of Rav Yehuda, was a student of Shmuel, and we've seen many times already, specifically in Dafka Masechta Ayruvin, we've seen many times that Rav Yosef said. And of course, with Yosef, when he got older, he lost his learning. We also saw Rashi recently, which was very interesting, that he then sort of got strong again, and he was and he got back into learning, but he still would have foggy memories about what exactly he said or what he knew, what he didn't know. And anyways, his assumption was always that if Shmuel would have said something, then surely he would have known it from his Rebbe, Rav Yehuda, who was a student of Shmuel. So Rav Yosef says, I never heard this statement, I never heard this opinion of Shmuel that will say good asik, that the wall just breaks through the roof and goes all the way up to the heavens, and for that reason you can walk 4 amas on the roof. You can walk, Reuven and Shimon can each walk on their entire roof. Meaning, Reuven can walk on his roof, Shimon can walk on his roof, they can't. Oy va'avoy. We're not talking about walking, we're talking about carrying. Reuven can carry throughout his roof, Shimon can carry throughout his roof. So Abai says to Rav Yosef, what do you mean? Of course you said to us in the name of Shmuel that we would say good asik through the roof and say that there's a division. And you said it to us on the following: Gagadol asamuch lika'in. If you have a large roof that is next to a small roof, chevre, think back to Daf Ches of Masechta Ayruvin, Nifritza b'mlo l'makom ha'aser. The good thing about Nifritza b'mlo l'makom ha'aser 3 months later is that we're already familiar with it. So imagine you have a building that's in the shape of a T, okay? Or I guess technically we're viewing them as 2 buildings, right? So imagine you have a T, so you have the longer side, let's say, and the shorter side. I don't know, meaning, there's going to be the top of the T, and then there's going to be the line of the T. So the top of the T is the bigger one, and what we're referring to, the smaller one, is like the bottom part of the T. Now, so the smaller one is completely breached to the bigger one, right? So if you imagine like a T, so you have the top of it, and then you have the middle kind of stem, right? So from the top part where the smaller part kind of intersects with it, so from the perspective of the top part, well, it's just a Pesach really where it connects. But from the perspective of the smaller one, it's completely open into the larger part of the T. Therefore, from the perspective of the smaller one, it would be Nifritza b'mlo l'makom ha'aser. From the perspective of the larger one, well, it's really just a Pesach inside of a larger wall. Okay, so gadol asamuch l'ka'in. So if you have a large roof and then it is next to a smaller roof, hagadol mutar v'aka'in aser. So the larger roof is permissible, and you'd be allowed to carry on the larger roof because why not? V'aka'in aser, but the ka'in one you cannot because it's nifritza b'mlo l'makom ha'aser. So v'amat lan Allah, and Abai says, you told us, Rav Yosef, Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, that says Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel, Loshanu ela sheish diur nazeh v'diur nazeh, that when do we say that the larger building, the larger roof is allowed to carry and the smaller roof is not, is only when there are people that, use both roofs. The havila ha dikayin mechitza nidreses, because for the smaller roof, so this imaginary wall that's between the smaller roof and the larger roof keeps on getting trampled on by the people using the roof. But if you don't have lots of people who use the roof from both the small roof and the large roof, well then shnein mutar, well then both of them would be able to carry on their parts of the roof, because we would say that the wall that separates the 2 buildings inside would break through the roof and go up to the sky, and they would be 2 separate roofs, and each one would be allowed to carry on their own part of the roof. So, Rav Yosef, you did say in the name of Shmuel that we would say good asik even through the roof up to the sky. So Amarle, so Rav Yosef says, Tabai anahachi amriluchu. This is what I said to you. Loshanu ela sheish mechitza alzeh umechitza alzeh. That when we say that the larger roof can carry and the smaller roof cannot, it's when the entire T was surrounded by a wall. Tigaldo mishtri begipufe, the larger roof can carry, because the actual wall, the physical wall that's been built around the entire T, will create essentially a Pesach in the larger part of the T, right? These gipufe, these like side beams, meaning the part of the wall that goes until the opening where it intersects with the smaller T, with the smaller roof. But the smaller part of the T is completely breached to the larger part. But if there's no wall bichlal, and you have the walls of the building, but they don't go up higher than the roof, so shnein asurin, both of them will be forbidden, right? And even though you could theoretically say, with good reason, good asik, and say, what do you mean? The walls of the building go up to the heavens, and therefore there are these walls, and therefore it's the same thing as, meaning, what's the difference if there's imaginary walls or physical walls? At the end of the day, the larger part of the larger roof is going to just be allowed to carry because there's only a Pesach, and the smaller part of the roof will be unable to carry because it's nifritz up and low. So the answer to that is that to say that we'll view it as if it's a Pesach for the larger roof, you would really need proper walls, right? And therefore, what Rav Yosef is saying is that if there are proper walls, so then the larger roof can carry and the smaller one cannot. But if there are no walls at all, then we wouldn't say good asik, and neither part of the roof would be able to carry. And Abai says, what? He pushes back and he says, what do you mean? But you told us that it was specifically about people living there, not about walls. So Rav Yosef says, if in fact I was talking about people living, this is what I said about people living, that when we say that it's mutter for the people in the larger roof to carry, and for the people in the smaller roof it would be usher to carry, that is only when there is a wall surrounding the T, that people would be able to live within those walls. That the larger roof would be allowed to carry because it has these walls that create a Pesach, whereas the smaller part of the roof is completely breached to the larger part. But if there is a mechitza that is fit for living only on the larger part of the roof, but there is no wall whatsoever on the smaller part of the roof, well then afilu katan shari livnei gadol, well then the larger part of the roof is even allowed to carry on the smaller part of the roof. My time, how come? Because since the smaller part of the roof didn't make any mechitza at all, right? The smaller building didn't make any mechitza at all on their roof, they clearly indicated that they're not interested in using it, and therefore it's not considered like two separate reshuses, and the larger roof would be able to use the entire roof, even the smaller part. Ki'ad Amar of Nachman, it's like that which Rav Nachman said. Also, sulam kavua legago, if a person makes a permanent ladder that goes up to his roof, and nobody else did, right? So let's say you had a roof for a few different houses, and they all shared a roof, but only one person made a ladder up to it. Well then, huter b'chol hagag and kulan, he's allowed to carry between all of the roofs, because clearly he's the only one that is intending to use the roofs. Amar Abai says, Abai bana aliyah agabe beso v'aso lefanei adaka arba huter b'chol hagag and kulam. Right? Let's say you have a building with a bunch of apartments in it, and one apartment built a second story on the roof, and there's a door getting into that second story, and that goes on the roof, but nobody else has an entrance to the roof from their apartments. So clearly, this person who has another story there and who has a door to go up to there, clearly he seems to be the only one interested in using the roof, and therefore he's allowed to use the entire roof. Amar Rava says, Rava paim shadaka. Did I skip a little bit? Amar Abai bana aliyah agabe beso v'asa lefanei adaka arba huter b'chol hagag and kulan. I think I read that, right? That if he put a second story on his apartment, so then he'd be allowed to carry on the entire roof. Nobody else made any kind of entrances. Rava says, says Rava, sometimes actually making this door to the second story can actually make you unable to use the roof. In what case? How is that? Well, if the door that he made to the second story isn't actually facing the roof, maybe it's facing like his garden down below, so then you could say, well, maybe that door is only to guard his garden, but not necessarily to use the roof, and therefore he wouldn't be able to use the roof. Cheveh, that was Daf Peites of Masechta Ayruvin, where we began the 9th perek. We mostly were talking about carrying on roofs. We had the machlokes between Reb Meir the Chacham and Reb Shimon. Reb Meir says that you're allowed to carry from one roof to the other as long as there's no difference in height of 10 tefachim between them. The Chacham said you are unable to carry from one roof to another. Reb Shimon says not only can you carry from one roof to another, you can even carry from a roof to a chatzor, to a karpaf, as long as the item that you want to carry was in the roof or the chatzor or the karpaf when Shabbos began. We had machlokas between Rav and Shmuel about when you have two roofs next to each other and you can't really see where one house ends and the other begins, i.e. where the imaginary wall should be drawn. So in that case, Rav says that you can only carry up to 4 amas on your roof because it's niftzah lo l'makom ha'aser. Shmuel says you'd be able to carry on your entire roof because we would say good asik mechitzta, and it goes all the way up. And then we got into good asik mechitzta. And then at the end we got into situations where you have multiple houses that have a roof on them, but only one person actually did something to indicate that he's interested in using the roof, then he would be able to use that entire roof. Chevra, peace.